All right, turning back to revelations that President Trump secretly switched planes in Turkey following last month's NATO summit due to an Iranian threat. For more on this, we're joined by CBS News foreign policy and national security contributor, retired Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster. He also served as national security advisor during the first Trump administration. General, as someone who's seen behind the curtain of how the White House security works, what the Secret Service precautions are, what do you think, what kind of a threat do you think Air Force One was facing?
Well, Vlad, great to be with you and Kelly. Of course, we won't know maybe until like 3 decades from now what the intelligence was. But obviously, we had gathered some intelligence that there was a plot against President Trump. No huge surprise. The Iranian regime has threatened to kill him. He's had 2 attempts on his life already. And so the Secret Service is very closely connected to our intelligence agencies. They've probably received warning of this plot. How well developed it was, we don't know, obviously. But we do know that the Iranians have spent a lot of time trying to penetrate Europe, and they've conducted scores, I guess, of violent actions and assassinations in Europe, going back to '79 when they assassinated a nephew of the Shah in Paris, and another assassination in Paris in '84 against a former member of the armed forces of Iran, and assassinations in Switzerland. This is not a new threat. I think that, of course, there was some new intelligence associated with that, and they made the adjustments. So I think it all looks like everything worked, in terms of the Secret Service taking actions based on intelligence.
And General, you at the same time as a security threat, you have the stalemate between the U.S. and Iran. It continues to deepen. Every time we talk to you, I feel like I ask you about the Strait of Hormuz. I'm going to do it again. Now the president is demanding compensation from Iran after Tehran made its own demands. What is the way out of this? Because I don't think there is a clear one, but something has to happen. In your assessment, what is that?
Yeah, I think what we're up against, Kelly, is this intransigence of the regime, and the degree to which the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, this guy Vahidi, and now you saw Mustafa's getting in the act finally a little bit, are making these outlandish demands, and this is the cycle I think we're going to see repeat itself. Is that you'll see efforts to get to some kind of negotiated settlement, but then the Iranians, based on their ideology, based on their permanent hostility to the United States, we're talking about really an assassination threat to the president, and then they're making all these demands for compensation and so forth. I think we're just going to be in this cycle until there's the forcible entry of the Strait. I think that's ultimately what's going to have to happen, and I just don't think the regime will give us any other sort of viable opportunity unless they buckle under the economic pressure. And this is what I think is really key. And you mentioned this, Kelly, last time we talked about how important I think it is not to give Iran the infusion of cash that it needs to regenerate its capacity to do harm in the region, whether through the missile drone strike complex or through increased support for its proxies and terrorist organizations in the region.
And General, let's turn briefly to the war in Ukraine. As you know, the country's president, Zelensky, has accused Russia of using ballistic missiles supplied by North Korea in its latest overnight attacks. What should we make of that?
Hey, no surprise, right? I think what you're seeing, Vlad, what we are all witnessing is a coalescing of what I would call an axis of aggressors. That's Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and they're aiding and abetting each other in pretty significant ways. We know that Russia and China are doing everything they can, under the table, to try to hide it, but as much as they can with hiding it, to regenerate Iranian capacity. And of course, the North Koreans, heck, there are 30,000, up to 30,000 North Korean troops fighting alongside Russians in Europe. They've also provided about 10 million, we think, rounds of artillery. So every other artillery shell that's fired by the Russians in Ukraine is a North Korean one. Ballistic missiles, no surprise there. And Iran's been in this game too, right? It was the Iranians who gave some missile capabilities, but really this Shahed drone capabilities to Russia to continue their onslaught against Ukraine. And guess who's underwriting the whole effort? China, with the electronics, the hardware needed to sustain Russia's war-making machine, to sustain Iran's war-making machine. So I think the sooner we see this axis as hanging together and aiding and abetting one another, the better we'll be able to respond to this. And I think you see the Trump administration doing this now especially with the threat of secondary sanctions, for example, on entities that are helping the cash flow continue into Iran. And so I think what the inescapable conclusion is going to be that this axis is working together. In my view, we should stop trying to separate them. We should glue them together, because I think at this moment, all of them have some real problems that we could almost hang around their necks, their collective neck as lodestones at the moment.
All right. General H.R. McMaster, always great to have you, my friend. Thank you for your analysis as always. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you, Vlad. Take care. Bye, Kelly.